Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. I'd like to read something to you that appeared in the forums at reconnectionclub.com. One of our members was writing about the estranged adult children who don't bother to return texts from their parents. And she gave me permission to share what she wrote, so here it is. Quote, "They seem to want to be free to do their own thing for a while, and I can't say I blame them. The hardest thing is trying to understand why they can't do this with at least a nod every now and then to let us know that they are okay. It doesn't seem to be asking a lot." End quote. Well, thank you to the mom who wrote those words that express what so many other parents feel. Why can't my adult child take just 5 seconds to return a text with even a single word like yes or no or okay? Why is that asking so much? And this is a very good question. It seems like it might be rhetorical when you ask it, but I think it's worth trying to actually answer that question of why, because the answer could be illuminating. And I'm going to make an assumption here that there's more going on than your child is just busy or she forgot to get back to you. I'm going to assume that there's some tension here that's making otherwise polite, well-behaved adults ignore text messages from their parents. Consider for a moment that what you're asking them for is maybe not just a little bit of their time. It actually might be quite a bit more than that. First, at the very least, you're placing a claim on their attention with a text. Whatever else might be going on in their lives, when a text from you comes in, that text is a signal for them to turn their attention away from where it is at that moment and direct it to their mom or dad as soon as conveniently possible. Your text calls their attention because whatever you say in the text requires at least a couple of brain cells to process and a few more to formulate an appropriate response. But, you may say, that call for attention is there whenever anyone sends a text to anyone else. It can't be helped. It's just a fact of texting life. So you might say, big deal. I'm asking for my child's attention. That's not a crime. And you'd be right. But there's more that you're asking for, and all of these tiny little asks do add up to something bigger for many adult children. When you send a text to your adult child, in addition to asking for a little bit of their time and a little bit of their attention, you're also implicitly asking them to take care of your need to stay connected to them on your terms. You're essentially saying, I have a need to reach out to you right now, and I'd like you to take care of that need by responding. I mean, I've always tried to take care of your needs. I hope this is not asking too much. And the more it bugs you that they don't respond, the more of an emotional burden your child is likely to feel when they get that text. They know you well enough to know that you might be anxious or hurt or disappointed or otherwise distressed if they don't get back to you in a reasonable amount of time or at all. And therefore, your text represents not a moment of their time or a small request for attention, but an emotional burden for them to carry. The more you need your child to text you back when you text them, the greater the burden they're likely to feel. So, if they don't get back to you right away, or at all, and you suspect there's more to it than they're just busy or they forgot, their refusal to respond may be a message. What that message is will depend on the nature of the tension in the relationship. By not responding to your text, your child might be saying, "Please don't reach out so much. I don't want to be in contact as often as you do." Silence is a common way to express disapproval of texting that feels too frequent. And that might hurt to think that your child wants less contact with you than you want with her. And if that idea does hurt to think about, there's nothing wrong with you. Nobody likes to feel rejected by someone who matters to them. It doesn't have to mean that either of you is wrong. You want the amount of contact that you want, and your child wants the amount of contact that he wants. Neither one of you is wrong. It's just there's not always a match. What else might your child's lack of response signify? Well, she might be testing you unconsciously to find out whether she's required to be there for you as a condition of your love or acceptance. At some level, she may be wondering, what happens to the relationship if I am not there when mom or dad needs me? Do they get angry? Will they retaliate with silence when I eventually write back? So silence can also be a way of testing how steadfast you are as a parent. I'm not saying that's a kind thing for your child to do, but I don't think it's on purpose most of the time. I think it's often unconscious, or at best, semi-conscious behavior. Many young adults want to know that you're there for them if they need you, but otherwise, they kind of want you to fade into the background while they focus on other things and try to make their way in the world that they're now out there in. Young adulthood can be a self-focused time in life because there's so much work to do to lay the foundation for the rest of life. And there's experimentation as well that takes up time and attention. I remember feeling this way in my 20s. I wanted my parents to be there if I needed them, but the rest of the time, my focus was entirely elsewhere. Think back to your own younger days and the role that you wanted or needed your parents to play in your life. As you can probably tell, receiving a reply by text can be much more complicated than your child simply being willing to take the time to do it. So the next time you ask yourself why your child won't do you the small favor of replying to a text, remember that what you're asking for may be more of an emotional burden than you know or than you ever intended. Your text may be asking not only for time and attention, but knowing you may be hurt, sad, or annoyed if he doesn't get back to you, your child is possibly feeling the weight of having to take care of your emotions. And that's something that many adult children can come to resent over time. So when it comes to texting, if you don't hear back from your child, her lack of response might be a sign, not that she's rude or doesn't love you anymore, but that it may be time to start listening to her cues and paying attention to the schedule that seems to work best for her when it comes to contact. One final practical tip here. Try to make sure when it comes to texting, if your child seems a little bit reluctant about communication, try to make sure that he or she always has either the first or the last word in every text exchange. Preferably, he has both the first and the last word. That way, you'll spend far less time waiting for a text from your adult child. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.